Okay, for our final week, we're going to put together a consulting report. So this is a different assignment than what you've had for the last 7 weeks. But basically what we're going to do is put it all together now for the Omega Church data. So if we go back to what we've been doing with the Omega Church data, we started here with the managerial report. Then we did a research proposal. Then we did the descriptive analytics report. Now we're going to put this together in a consulting report. Consulting reports are typically for your client, not necessarily for a manager. So in this case, perhaps the church asked you to come in and do this. Maybe you're volunteering or they're actually paying you to do it. That would be the options. And the consulting report's a little bit more professional in appearance. It's a little flashy. It has a little bit of a marketing spin to it. And the reason I'm showing you this is that it's one more way to communicate the data. And with data, when we acquire data and we analyze data, we also need to know how to communicate data. And that's why I've used these very strategic reports for your assignments. So in the consulting report, you can get pretty creative with these. Now you can just go to Google and look for a consulting report template. Word has some. There's probably some others out here that you could use, but there are some consulting report templates that you can use. Looking to see the one for Microsoft Word. Here we go, templates. So these templates, most of them are free, and you can find some pretty interesting ones. In this one, it may not call it a consulting report. Maybe here's a business report you could use. Here's another business report. So these are just different reports that you can use. Basically, it's adding some visual imagery to it. You'll notice this doesn't look like your typical assignment because it has these nice visual images, your graphs, your little widgets. I call these widgets here. So it's a great way to do that. And you can just download it straight from, now this one wants you to pay for it, but you don't have to. A lot of these are free. So it gives you some options out here with Microsoft. Another place that I go frequently would be Canva. And in the video link, I'll put the link to Canva for you, but you can go to Canva, take a look at their consulting reports. So you can look at report. Again, it doesn't necessarily have to be a consulting report, but you'll notice it pops up some imagery that isn't typical to your normal academic assignment. And the reason for that is if we're doing this for a business or a church, they don't want to read our APA style paper. They want it to look, eye-catching, make it easy for them, fewer words, more imagery, so that we can get our message across to them in a clear and concise way. Okay, so in Canva, if you, let's say we use this, you'll notice it has these different types of documents that you can use. So we could just pop these in here, add a page, pop another one in here, add a page, and so on. This one's not the consulting report template, but it gives you some ideas. These are actually flyers. And we don't want flyers, we want a report. But it gives you some ideas of what you can do. And then it's very user-friendly. You just click and start typing. So let's look at the analytics report. Back to consulting report. Here we go. Let's do this one. Let's just look at report. Many of these will have several documents for you. All in one is the template. Here you have an annual report. You have a report this way. Report covers. So you could have this as your cover. Maybe we want this. Anyway, you can get very creative with this, and it gives it a very nice professional quality where you can add your own imagery. There's photos over here that you can add. and you can just update the text accordingly. So those are some ideas. Now, if this overwhelms you and you don't have a creative hat that you want to put on, that's okay too. You can simply do it in your Microsoft Word, maybe add a few images here and there as you can. Okay, so let's get into the consulting report. And oh, I already have these linked for you, Canva and Microsoft Word. Okay, and we'll pull this up as an option. As that comes up, I'll show you a few other ideas. So here we have, here's a sample consulting report. This one came directly from Microsoft Word. It's a template. Now you might not want the butterflies, but you can easily replace that with another image, but it gives you some nice boxes or circles in this case that you can update. So if we want to talk about descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive analytics, there you go. You know, it's easy for you at this point to just type over the template. And like I said, you can replace these images. You can just copy paste. You can also go here to images. They have stock images if you want to use the stock images that are right here inside of Microsoft. It's coming. So there we go. And you can drag it. I do recommend when you drag pictures, drag from the corner. If you drag from the edge, see how it skews it. So instead, drag from the corner, it will keep everything proportional. Okay, so this is kind of what the end result will look like. Let me go back to my examples here to show you a few more. Here's one. This actually came out of Canva. This one did. And it gives you the table of contents. You can update all of these words, all of this text. You can add your own charts. All right, here's another example. And you can get creative if you want to add a logo, if you want to give your company a name, you can get very creative with this. You'll notice it follows a similar pattern of our other documents. It has an executive summary. It has your descriptive statistics piece in it, but it's basically giving you a different way to present the material. And then I'll give you one more here. So same thing, table of contents. This one came out of Canva, and you can just then go in and update all the information that you want. Okay, so those are some ideas of what the end result could look like. Let's pop in here and look at what the assignment's telling us to do. Okay, so with this, we're looking at a 10-page minimum consulting report. That will be very easy to get to because there's so much imagery with this. There's very little text actually, but a lot of imagery. And what we're doing is talking to the church. Use this as a standalone report. If this is the only report that the church would look at, let them know what data you received, what you've done with the data, if you think it was enough data or the right data for what you're trying to accomplish. And we're going to also offer some recommendations of what they should do going forward. Okay, so we're talking about here, the task is to make sense of the data. We already started with that with the descriptive statistics and the research proposal. We were digging around in the data, trying to make it organized. Evaluate the information in this workbook and make recommendations. Recommendations can be so far as, clean your data, make sure that it's in a certain format, name your data consistently. Let's see, if we have data with dates of birth, we want to make sure that those are formatted properly. It can also be the recommendations of what we see from the data. So in this case, if we're looking at the income, maybe when we want to say, focus your attention on these top 10 areas of income and do away with the bottom 10 income streams or something like that. Those could be recommendations. So here we're talking about the first assignment used descriptive. We've used the managerial report. We've used predictive and prescriptive rhetoric. to make recommendations. That's what we're going to do here. So with this, you have descriptive, which is what we've been doing in the past. We're taking a look at the data to make sense of what's going on. The predictive and prescriptive is looking forward. So knowing what we know here, if we go back to, let's use our income as an example. So if we go back to all of our income, do we want to keep doing what we're doing? Do we want to keep having 27 streams of income? Or do we want to focus our attention somewhere else? And so predictive is, if we keep doing what we're doing, we're always going to get the same result, essentially. So predictive is just that. Do we want to keep going forward with what we're doing? And you could put some analysis around this to take a look at, well, let's use anniversary income as an example. So let's look at anniversary income. We're going to look at this for all the years. We're going to do a pivot table. Look at anniversary income. And we want this for each year. Okay. So if we organize this, and I like to put the dollar signs, we can see then, well, 2015, 17, and 18 had quite a bit of anniversary income. Now, we don't know enough to know why that's the case. Did they have a different committee those years? What happened in 2019? We obviously don't have the data since 2019, so we'd want to have that. That would be a recommendation for sure. But it could be that maybe they have different committees that have done this over the years. And so if that's the case, we want to see who worked the committees in 2015, 2017, and 2018, and get some feedback from them to understand, what did they do? What can we continue to do that was successful? Talk to the folks that did it in 2014, 2016, and 2019, and see, what did they do? Did they just not have enough time to put into this anniversary? Did they not have the right people? Was there something else going on in the church at the time? We don't know if there were leadership changes. We don't know really what was going on. And if we had the 2020 data, we'd probably see a big zero there. So, then we would assume that was because of COVID, but we want to see, we just need to know more details. So if we just used this as in our consulting report, we could put this together. We could use it as this table. We could also put it together in a chart. So let's do it this way. And this way we can see year over year. It's an easy data visualization to see, wow, they didn't do very well in 2019, but they did pretty good in these other 3 years. So what is it that we should do going forward? So if we do our predictive analytics, we could assume that, well, if we keep doing what they did in 2019, we're not going to perform very well. We're not going to bring in much money. But if we keep performing the way we did in 15, 17, and 18, we could bring in quite a bit of money. Now, prescriptive, if you think about predictive as in keep doing what you've been doing and you get the same result. Prescriptive is an aspect of a doctor where the doctor prescribes something so that you'll have a different result. In this case, the prescription may be, we need to go back and figure out what these folks did in these 3 years so that we can have a better outcome in the future. If we keep doing what they did in 2019, it may not be worth our time to invest in this project going forward. But if we do what they did in these other 3 years, it likely is worth our time. So the prescription could be, just based off this one data set, the prescription could be, let's put a project together, understand what happened in all of these years, who were on the committees, what did they do if they did fundraisers or they did certain events that helped to raise the money, and then let's replicate that. What worked well? Let's not do the things that didn't work well, but replicate what did work well. And that's what I'm talking about, the predictive and prescriptive analytics. We don't need to go in to do heavy lifting with any sort of predictive modeling for this class. That's beyond the scope of this class, but just the mindset of descriptive, prescriptive, and predictive analytics is what we're looking for. Okay, so once you get all of that put together, I want to show you one example. Let me pull this up. Okay, so in this example, we're using church data to understand more about descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive analytics. So this student actually named the church something different than Omega. Here's their table of contents, their executive summary. Here they are using some of the vision statement and value statements from the church. So you can get pretty creative with this. Then we have the assessment. And this is what I really want you to see though, is here is a section on descriptive statistics. Now feel free, you can bring in some scripture with this. Know your audience. So your audience is a church. You can bring in scripture. You can talk about the aspect of analytics, how it's good to reflect on the past. Really, that's what descriptive is. What's happened in the past? What does that tell us for the future? Then you can talk about predictive analytics. Predictive is, again, taking a look at if we keep doing what we've been doing, what will happen? Well, typically the same thing will happen. And so using predictive, then we talk about prescriptive analytics. With the prescriptive, that's where we're coming in and making recommendations. In this case, the student used more scripture. Feel free to do that. And then in this case, they also put a nice model in place here that just like acquiring the data, we've gathered data, we've acquired it, we've interpreted the data, we're making an action plan with this consulting report. This is where we're communicating to the church what we think should happen. Then it's up to the church if they enact that plan or not. And let's see. They give some very specific ideas, recommendations of what they can do. So if we're using our income, if we go back to this and we want to talk about anniversary income, we could have some very specific ideas here of what we want to do to grow that income. And then we conclude. So always conclude. You have the introduction, which is basically stating this is what we're talking about, and then the conclusion to tie it up nicely with a bow. All right, well, I think that's about it for your consulting report. It's pretty much the same thing that you've been doing. It's just putting it in a different format and thinking ahead. Have forward thinking with this data. So we've been so in the middle of the data, sometimes it's hard to see beyond the data, but thinking about the data and then what is it that we want to do? What could we really recommend to the church based on the information that we have? If you have any questions, please let me know.